Hello there, Charles here. This is this third episode of How to Restore a Castle, and as you can tell, this is not quite as scripted. It's not part of the first part of the book. I wanted to talk about this pod in this way, and excuse the flapping that's going on. That's the rescue dog getting up in response to my voice. I wanted to talk about this pod because while at its core, it will be the narration of the book How to Restore a Castle, and I think that will end up being an admonition a day, keeping the men in white coats at bay, I hope. It offers me the chance to revisit the first two parts of the book while I write the third, which, as you ask, is going well. I've got something like 4/5 of a rough draft. And I need to have another 2/5 so I can then cut it down to the eventual length, which will be 25,000 words. The editing is essential. It means I can take out most of the flights of whimsy, or at least try to. I have to say I'm not sure I succeeded in part one. Anyway, so, and the second reason for the pod is to be more reflective or maybe discursive, and also of the moment. As I speak, it's late August 2020, and events are afoot which will alter or accelerate the entire progress of the restoration. So I'm going to try and unpick those in more detail. And whilst obviously there is the newsletter for lads and ladies, which you're welcome to subscribe to, that is a slightly more formal way of moving the whole thing forward. Interacting with lads and ladies. And this is really about thinking out loud on what's happening, etc., etc. Maybe even reflecting on the first two parts of the book and things that I've missed out, or things that might be interesting asides. And that might, happen as I do the admonitions. I think, actually, I should talk about that a bit more. I'm also hoping at some point to have guests, different voices on the pod, and give you an idea of the characters that are involved with a part of Dunans Castle. So obviously Sadie will make an appearance, which I'm sure you'll enjoy. And I'm hoping that not only will she talk about her take on the restoration project, but also the other very famous company that works out of Dunans Castle, which is the Walking Theatre Company. Whilst I won't say this directly to herself, or maybe I will, actually TWTC, as we call it, has been one of the major inspirations behind how I deal with Scottish Laird. Sadie is an incredible, innovative business leader, a team leader for over 50 actors, and if I say that she is also known as Mrs. Christmas, you'll get an idea of quite the impact the company has had on Scotland and maybe also the rest of the UK. If you go to any light shows and you see a Father Christmas, they'll no doubt have been cast and produced by Sadie and her fabulous associate producer Emma. So we'll talk to Sadie at some point. I'd also quite like to get hold of Eland, although he might be a bit embarrassed. Gordon, although he might be a bit monosyllabic and truculent. Jean, who is the production manager for Scottish Laird, who is also running her own business and supplies us with Scottish Wild Picnics. So a cast of characters there to look forward to. And I mentioned earlier the presence of a rescue dog in our lives now. And if you have been following Run Chaz Run, which is my Instagram diary of my runs, you'll have seen the recent emergence of Pepper, the spaniel, who's now wagging her tail because I've named her, who has been causing chaos in our lives over the last, it's actually only a week. It seems much longer and much shorter. You know how that goes. She is 3, She is a bitch. I mean that factually rather than figuratively. And she has caused a lot of laughter, great consternation among our resident pack, who my mother-in-law looks after. There's somebody else who we should have a chat with, my mother-in-law. The cats have decided they particularly don't like this new, vibrant, energetic canine. Anyway, so Pepper has come into our lives. I've been running with her. Sadie has been training her because, among everything else that Sadie does, she is also a qualified dog trainer, has a certificate to prove it. It's been a real eye-opener. We'd have had Bassets, we've had Newfoundlands. I grew up with Spaniels and I'd forgotten the level of energy that they bring to the equation. So that's been a lot of fun over the last week. I'm not sure we've quite got to an equilibrium yet, but it has to be said that I am running more regularly. I am outside more regularly, and doing things that I didn't think I was going to do. So that's been really good, really good. And I think the other thing is that when you rescue a dog, you don't quite know what you're going to get. We've rescued Bassets and we've rescued Newfs. We've rescued both male and female dogs. The females have always been easier. The dogs sometimes end up having aggression issues, and that's sometimes quite difficult to cope with. But what has the joy of it, I suppose, is that you end up with a dog which has a developmentality which you have to accommodate and take the edges off, and they have to get used to you, and you also end up divining their previous life, their idiosyncrasies. So with Pepper, our spaniel, one of the things that struck me immediately on meeting her was that whenever there was bright sunlight, she would follow the gestures of my hands while I was talking. And we noticed that, thought that's really strange. She would spin about around and with following the gestures, and then we saw that she followed reflected light, and she's actually doing it at the moment in the office because I have a couple of strong overhead lights, and she's seeing her shadow reflected on a shelf, and she's nosing the shelf and getting awfully excited. Actually, she just lay down now, so that's better. And then we understand that spaniels, which are dogs used for shooting, basically are rejected by gamekeepers if they have this particular fascination with light, because apparently it is an abnormality in the spaniel that this can happen. And so we think that Pepper and her kennel mate were both rejected at the same time and taken to the rescue centre because of this difficulty. It doesn't mean to say that Pepper is any less affectionate, any less beguiling, any less frustrating. She is great fun. You know, we've really come to have a great affection for her in this short time. I think she quite likes us. She reminds me very much of my mother's last dog, Linford, who sadly passed away, just in terms of her demeanour when she's being calm and quiet and lovely. So if you come for a tour at Dunans, it's likely that I will have Pepper on a leash. Pepper, come over here. And you'll meet her, which she loves meeting people, although she does tend to bark a bit, so be warned. So that's the moment that I was reflecting on today, because it's at the top of my mind. I could have talked about forestry, because things are moving there, and the public consultation on the register of projects or new woodland projects has now closed, so that should be moving forward, although our consultant hasn't been in touch for several days. I could also reflect about the kerfuffle on the bridge, but I think I'm going to leave both of those until I have a more positive piece of news with regard to those, and I'll reflect upon the whole scenario there. But in the meantime, I think really what I should be mentioning, I've already said that I have a Instagram feed, Run Chaz Run. There's also a Dunans Castle Instagram feed, as is also a YouTube one, but that's under my name, Charles Dixon-Spain. All of those have lots and lots of content. I've also set up a TikTok under Dunans Castle, and I'm basically publishing new videos, old videos, any content that seems relevant either to Dunans or to the area or just life in general. So that will be quite interesting. Frankly, I don't use TikTok, so I'm going to be intrigued as to see just how successful that is. In any event, the podcast will carry on. I will continue publishing admonitions. Admonition 3 is quite interesting, as is 4, and then 5 I think we get onto the story. So all of it is worth waiting for. I hope you subscribe, follow this podcast, and once I've got enough listeners, we'll also do a subscription version, and that will have extra content, of course, because that's how these things work. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the 3 episodes I've posted, and I hope you will follow me for the rest. In the meantime, from me and Pepper, cheerio.